Welcome to Nonprofit Podcast. My name is David Higgins. I am so excited about our conversation today. And this is a conversation that I really think is going to grip your heart, because it is not just talking about how to deal with systemic issues within your community, but how to build a nonprofit to make a real impact in that community around about. Today, we enter into the Deep South, Atlanta, Georgia, to be precise. For me, many of our greatest heroes are individuals who could build an illustrious career in financial space, but rather focus their skill and education on raising the next generation. Today, we get to meet one of those people. He has poured into the lives of Atlanta's children, and with the purpose of bridging the gap between kids in need and their families, schools, and the community. Let's welcome CEO of Communities in Schools of Atlanta and Atlanta's Magazine's 2022 Top 500 Most Powerful Leaders, Frank Brown Esq. Frank, it's so good to have you here at our podcast.
So glad to be here, David. Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be with you today. How are you?
I'm doing really good. I want to dive right in. In 1998, you graduated from the University of South Carolina School of Law and shifted to nonprofit leadership with a focus on childhood development. That's quite a shift. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, well, it was a little bit longer than that. I actually left law school and I was bitten by the political bug, and I went to work for Arlen Specter right out of law school in passing the bar. I worked for former Senator Arlen Specter from Pennsylvania for 7 years, and it was probably the most impactful experience of my life. Very few people get to go to Washington and work with someone who actually has power and uses it for the good of his constituents. I learned everything about government, about public service, about how to overcome adversity and still thrive and still stay focused on helping others from Arlen Specter. So those 7 years really shaped me and made me tough. And he was historically ranked one of the worst guys to work for because he was so tough. But for me, he was a father figure and really helped me develop the kind of foundation of how I wanted to have impact in my life. So after working on the Hill, I moved to New York and I became the number 2, the deputy at an organization called Boys and Girls Harbor out of East Harlem.
Wow.
And it was started by Anthony Drexel Duke. He's a member of the Duke family out of Duke University. And he started in 1937 as a camp in East Hampton. And it spawned into an organization that had 8 daycare centers across Harlem, after-school programs, a charter school, a private high school, a conservatory for the performing arts, a literacy center. It was a mental health center. It was about a $30 million operation, and I had never worked in a nonprofit in my life. And my job was to bring in the government resources. So I brought in earmarks from Washington. I brought in city council money, state, assembly, state senate money to help grease the wheels and make sure we had enough to do all we could do as far as the kids in Harlem. So I really was bitten by it. And then I went on to run an organization in Brooklyn called Oasis Community Corporation that provided after-school programs to students in Harlem and Brooklyn. So I was bitten by accident. I kind of fell into the nonprofit sector, but it's been probably the most meaningful journey of my professional life, especially what I'm doing today in Atlanta. Communities in Schools is a 50-year organization. Was started in 1972, and our mission is very simple. To surround kids with a community of support and empower them to stay in school and achieve in life. And we're working on the achieve in life. I think we were great to getting them to stay in school, but now me and my colleagues are really focused on what does achieve in life mean? Mm-hmm. And so for us, that means that every student we serve must become a full participant in the American dream. And when I say that, I'm not being cliche or tongue in cheek with it. They must be a homeowner. They must be a voter. They must become a taxpayer. They must become value add to their society. They must be leaders, husbands, wives, brothers, sisters. We want full participants, despite the fact that they might come from zip codes in Atlanta that say they only have a 4% chance if they're living in poverty to get out of them. This organization has been at the forefront of getting kids out of those types of muddy situations. And now it's expanded across the country. What we started here in Atlanta has now expanded to 26 states, including the District of Columbia. And CIS, the national network, serves about 1.5, 1.6 million kids, whether it's LA, whether it's Seattle, whether it's Houston, whether it's Dallas, whether it's Miami, whether it's Jacksonville, Charlotte, Philly, you name it, we're there, except in New York City is where we don't have a local affiliate. But I feel a different responsibility running CIS of Atlanta because it started everything. So that means we should be the best practitioners of what we do. We should be the innovators to lead the network into what's happening the next 20 years. We should be the best practitioners, the best board members who are all engaged and giving and working to make this organization great. We should have a plan, a strategic plan that guides our work. And we should have results, clean audits, and 97% of our kids, like last year, either graduating high school or earning promotion to the next grade. And we're an evidence-based model. I think the one thing I would tell the nonprofit sector is we're being held to account in this market to prove your impact. And that is a confusing thing. There's a lot of forces that are, Mackenzie Bezos is really shaking up giving and really bringing a spotlight to the discrimination that nonprofit leaders of color, especially, there was an article in the Chronicle of Philanthropy that talked about leaders like me not getting these same opportunities as other nonprofit leaders to make impact, to get grants that don't have all these restrictions on them, and that grants that are meaningful, that we can actually do some innovative stuff. So for me, I could not be more proud of my work at CIS. I tell people the most valuable assets we have, not just here in Atlanta, but across this network, are the site coordinators. These are people, these are the agents of love. These are the unsung heroes. During COVID, year to year, from March 2020 to March 2021, CIS Atlanta gave out over $600,000 in emergency assistance from a grant we got from BET, Black Entertainment Television. And it was for my communities of color that were affected negatively by COVID. 2,500 families got some assistance off of that. Over 70% of that funding went for housing. Think about it. In the midst of a pandemic, the majority of the people we serve or who we gave assistance to were trying to secure or keep or get into housing. Mind you, schools were closed. Mind you, laptop distribution and purchases by each school district varied based off of who was ahead of the curve and who was not. Mind you, every study that I've seen, every Wall Street Journal article, every New York Times article says that virtual learning was an absolute disaster in some instances for poor kids of color. Some kids never even showed up the whole year because of these barriers. There was no way to find them if they were missing or if they moved. So we're digging out of a ditch. And more importantly, in particular about Atlanta. Atlanta was deemed by Bloomberg Businessweek the year of right before COVID as the income inequality capital of America. That means people of color are worse off here than they are in Appalachia. It wasn't Appalachia, it wasn't West Virginia, it wasn't San Francisco, it wasn't New York City, it wasn't Greenwich, Connecticut, it wasn't the suburbs of Phoenix, it wasn't the suburbs of Philadelphia, it was in Atlanta. The city that produced Martin Luther King and Maynard Jackson and Hank Aaron hit home runs and we had all these great C.T. Vivian and the list goes on and on. But Black people today are worse off here statistically than any other place in the country. And then juxtapose that with the great statistic of more Black people make over $200,000 a year than any other city in the country here in Atlanta, but most of them are transplants, which means they don't know anything about Atlanta. When they move here, they're not moving to poor communities, they're going to gated communities, they have a gilded life, and they don't even see it or understand the poverty, the systemic, endemic poverty that has kids like at Thomasville Heights, the poorest school in our portfolio, one of the lowest performing schools in the state of Georgia for the last 40 years.
Yeah. And COVID would not have helped that statistic at all.
The median income for parents at that school was $9,700.
No.
I'm going to repeat that. $9,700 in America. Those children are in similar conditions than children from Mumbai, India, or from some of the slums and some of the South American communities that are really hip and ravaged by poverty and lack of opportunity. They are no different.
Right.
In America, in Atlanta, a place that has been run by African-American mayors for the last 40 years, that's un-American for me. So for me, that is the stick that keeps me going, and that's the fire that burns in me to really, with CIS, with our mission, with my colleagues, with a great board that's led by Eric Barnum and Chris Christie, to really change the game and get kids on a pathway to getting a degree, a certificate from a 2-year school if they can't go to a 4-year school, because all of our kids are not going to go to college. I'm not living but if they could get a certificate in piping and plumbing and in electricians, and that's still noble. They still can buy a home with that. I know on my end, I look at my children. I have 3 and we adopted 3. So we end up with quite a plethora of children. In that there's some that were naturally gifted for college. Others going to trade school was really where their happiness was and the success was at. Yeah. But then you have strategized a 3-tier system to help children succeed. Can you talk to me a little about that 3-tier system? Yeah, our model is an evidence-based model, and it's encapsulated around our site. It's a 3-tiered model. The first tier is whole school services. We bring an anti-bullying campaign through. We take kids, we bring a college tour through. The whole school can participate. We bring a vision truck for glasses and eyeglasses and things of that nature to deal with people's eye care. The whole school can come. Then we have this thing at the second tier, which is akin to a group model where we work with 10 to 15 kids on similarly situated issues, whether it's cessation of smoking, risky sexual behaviors, gang prevention activities we do. We can intervene and work with, whether it's all girls group on self-confidence, self-awareness. We can really intervene on that group level at about 10 to 15 kids. Then we have our Cadillac services, what I call is our case managed service. And that's where the school identifies 50 kids in that school who are most at risk of either dropping out or not earning a promotion to the next grade. And again, it's evidence-based. So their test codes tell us, attendance levels tell us that. Their behaviors tell us that, whether how many times they were suspended in school, out school. All of these, the school knows best, and the data dictate who goes on our caseload. And on that caseload, we get parental workshops. Wow. We have emergency financial assistance that we give out to our parents and our families. We take care, and we got core competencies about building healthy relationships with kids, helping our schools improve their college and career performance index scores, helping improve attendance, and securing basic needs. The kids we work with are the poorest of the poor. With Atlanta being the income inequality capital of the country, for example, I love statistics because they tell you a lot. In Atlanta, the median income for Black families in Atlanta Public School District is $23,000. The median income for white families in the same school district is $167,000. Wow. In Atlanta. I think that's the thing. This is Atlanta, a place that I look around and I see Black people thriving and Hispanic people thriving, but at the same time, there's an underbelly of people that are entrapped in poverty that we're working desperately to get out and put them on the path to be full participants in the American dream like you and I. How many schools in the Atlanta greater area are you working with right now? We're in 61 total. So we have about 21 schools in APS. We have 19 schools in Fulton County. We have 16 schools in Clayton County, and we have about 6 schools in DeKalb County. And then when you add on our 21st century community learning after school program, it's a STEM-based program we run out of Fulton County for about 100 kids that exposes them to STEM careers, give them some hand-on experience with drones and coding and puts them in a pipeline. We want to create a pipeline in Georgia Tech that's not athletically based. I want my kids to go to Georgia Tech and can stay to Georgia Tech and graduate because they're prepared and ready. We want a pipeline to Georgia. I think Georgia, only 7% of the kids down at the University of Georgia are minority kids. That's got to change. And I guarantee you, if you drill down on that 7% and find out how many of them are athletes, We are here to change these dynamics where our babies get to go to these big universities. They don't have to play anything. They got the brains, they got the talent, they got the support as far as us, what we're doing with their financial aid, what we're doing with scholarships, what we're doing with transportation, food, to make sure that they get there, stay, and graduate. The great thing is we have now we're supporting 150 kids in colleges all across this country. That's the new 5-year strategic plan. Focus is on our alumni work, our program excellence, our talent, our ability to raise the sufficient revenue to do that. And, so we have a very strategically focused way about going about this work, but alumni, that's developing direct relationships with colleges. So we are talking to Gordon State, Atlanta Tech, Atlanta Metro. We're talking to, HBCUs that are close by, Albany State, to make sure that we can my goal is to ultimately have site coordinators on college campuses. Like Devontae Wyatt is a young man that I'm so proud of. If you followed my social media, we just got back from a national championship in Indianapolis, and I couldn't be more proud of what happened there. Devontae was on our caseload at Towers High School from ninth grade all the way to 12th.
Yep.
And he went and got a scholarship opportunity with Georgia based off his football prowess, but he didn't qualify academically, so he had to go to Valdosta State.
Mm-hmm.
He had to go to Hutchinson. It's a small 2-year school out in Kansas, a big junior college that produces D1 players. But he went out there to get his grades right. We got a call from Devontae, and he said, Mr. Brown, I'm ready to go to Georgia, but there's a big problem. I said, what is it, son? He said, I have a balance from Hutchinson. Georgia will not accept me until they see my transcripts from the junior college. Balance was almost $5,000, and CIS of Atlanta paid it.
Wow.
Not only did we pay it, we went and took Devontae and got him everything he needed for his dorm room. And we actually took him to his family, did a party before he left, and we drove him to Athens and moved him in as if we were his parents.
That's fantastic.
But I use him as an example because that's the difference between how far this organization will go and anybody else that does this space. We want to be the most impactful in the world. And if we can move a kid from DeKalb County and Towers High School, a school that we're very proud of our partnership, but 2 years ago, the governor was trying to take it over for lack of academic performance and proficiency over a certain amount of time. Now it's off the list, thank God. But we could take a child from Towers, a place that they don't expect them to go to University of Georgia. They don't expect them to be on a national championship stage and perform and get the job done. And more importantly, Devontae will be graduating and getting his degree in December of this year from the University of Georgia while he is going to the NFL draft and being projected as a first-round pick. I say that because not only are we proud of his accomplishment, but he's given us a commitment he's going to come back. And so now this organization is creating its own future philanthropists where we don't have to go ask people for money, where we'll have kids who have benefited, who are now adults, who have means, who will do like Denzel Washington did for Boys and Girls Club and come back and use his platform for good to help me pull another 10,000 kids out. And that's what it's all about. Being steadfast, being committed. And I'm happy that our organization has been around for 50 years, and it's my job to leave it better than I found it so it can be around for however long it needs to be moving forward.
Can you talk to me a little bit about your volunteer base? Do you have to have a great team that you work with to be able to accomplish these goals?
Yeah.
If somebody is looking at CIS and it's in their region, in their city, they want to be involved, how do they get connected with you guys?
Well, I think the one thing is we have great corporate partnerships. For example, we have Roar Capital. Roar Capital owns everything from Dunkin' Donuts to Arby's to Moe's to Slotsky's Deli to Meineke. Having good corporate partnerships, because that's a base of volunteers. We do events. For example, we had a kickoff event with Rourke. They also own Jimmy John's. So we had lunch served, and we gave away book bag full of PPP and supplies for school to kick off the school year. That's a low-hanging fruit. We also have a reading. We had Malcolm Mitchell, who played for the University of Georgia and actually won a Super Bowl championship with Tom Brady in New England. And he has this great foundation around helping kids and introducing. He couldn't read when he got to Georgia. And he turned that message into now a foundation that he's giving out books and we partner or work around early education literacy initiatives to get books, to your point, in the hands of kids of color. There are 30,000 word gaps between Black kids and white kids before they even get into a classroom. What they're hearing, the discipline of reading, the love of reading. That's something that we're working with corporations. So we have Mercedes-Benz USA, another great partner that has invested in our work at Harper Archer Elementary. Harper Archer Elementary to help us get a site coordinator over there to really move the needle. So we have these corporate partnerships. Ann Cox Chamber, the matriarch of the Cox family from Cox Communication, is one of our biggest donors ever. The Cox Family Foundation has been nothing but generous to this organization for over 50 years. So when I look at the corporate partnerships we have, the corporations, Georgia Power just came back on our board. JLL, the biggest commercial real estate brokers in the world, are now on our board. Atlanta Braves are about to come on our board soon.
Really?
Very enthused about what's going on. And it tells me that the corporations have, in this George Floyd moment, here in Georgia, we have some great corporations who are stepping up, not just in the kind of traditional way, but really as far as putting board members who help me develop long-term strategy like Rourke did in these other corporations. So putting in resources too.
Mm-hmm. So what's next for you as Frank Brown, as a person, as a professional? Where do you see yourself in the next couple of years?
Wow. Well, fortunately, I want to thank my board. I just signed a 3-year extension. So I'm at CIS of Atlanta until 2025. But wherever I am, I want to be making impact. Wherever I am, I want to be a part of a process that's changing the needle for kids of color who are systematically displaced and, like me, just need a chance. But for me getting a scholarship to a Catholic school called Bishop England High School that changed my life, I wouldn't be sitting here with you. Yeah. Because without Bishop England, I wouldn't have had the awareness that I needed to go to college and go to Johnson C. Smith and excel. And when I got to law school at the University of South Carolina, there were 20 kids from Bishop England in my first year class. And those kids, white, rich kids from Charleston, South Carolina, made sure I got through. And so, for me, it's about turning back and making sure I keep the door open to pull another 10,000 kids out. So in the nonprofit sector in particular, there's a lack of diversity of people leading nonprofits who look like me, but the recipients of the service mainly look like me. Yeah. And I think that the nonprofit sector really is missing a moment to diversify its leadership ranks, to diversify the leadership of boards of nonprofits. This is a moment that everybody's talent must be brought to bear. And I think that I am uniquely situated because I'm one of the kids. Mm-hmm. I come from a single parent home. I have a brother who just walked out of a state penitentiary after doing 15 years for voluntary manslaughter. I have a dad who's been addicted to drugs, and I'm no different than the children that I serve. And I think that it gives me a inside perspective on how I lead this organization. I'm very proud that we have 0 findings in our audit, because I know that I can't have a scandal and be treated the same way as someone who doesn't look like me. I'm happy that 8 out of every 10 of the dollars that come in our door goes to our programming, that when the national average is $6 to $7. Mm-hmm. I'm happy of the diversity of my leadership team. I got a great leadership team that supports me and believes in me. And I got a good God that keeps me going and keeps me humble. I think you start off with the top 500, and that's a great award and everything. But the better award was seeing that child walk off that confetti after winning that national championship. Yeah. The better award for me is to be at Ariana Hollister's graduation from Howard last year and to now connect her with my Leadership Atlanta classmate, Jimmy Etheridge, who's the CEO of Accenture North America. Mm-hmm. The better connection for me is that young man from Creekside High who we got into Georgia Tech, who told me he wanted to go to Georgia Tech 2-3 years ago, and now he's a freshman over there. Yep. Those are the accolades that matter to me.
Yeah, I love the way you always brag on other people. I love, through our whole conversation, you've been holding up other people, and that's, to me, is leadership. And thank you so much for being that way. We are going to close our conversation here today by holding up another nonprofit, just giving them a shout out for doing an amazing job. We do this at the end of every one of our conversations. So, Frank, I'm going to go ahead and go first, and I'm going to give a call out to a charity in South Carolina. When I'm done, I'm going to hand it to you, and you can give thumbs up to somebody you think is doing a great job in your world over there. Okay. So I was looking in South Carolina as I've got a chance to drive through there a couple times in my career. Angels Charity is a designation given by the Secretary of State there in South Carolina. It honors organizations that exemplify charitable giving in the state with selections based on a review of financial reports as well as nominated from the public. And there is a number of them that South Carolina over the last couple of years has said, these are amazing nonprofits. A veterans support charity called the Red Barn Retreat, a nonprofit for boys who experience difficult family situations called Boys Farm in Newberry. I love Habitat for Humanity, and Central Southern Carolina's Habitat for Humanity is one of the highest ranked nonprofits in the entire state for accountability and their impact and using what is given to those that are around. And there is one particular group I thought that was just amazing, and it is got a 96.3%, which is right up there with the Big Red Barn and Habitat for Humanity, but they are just a small nonprofit, and they are a Sustaining Way in Greenville. And they are a community action nonprofit, and they get a 98.5% for how good they are doing and how they turn everything that's given to them back into their community. So I just want to give them a high five, Sustaining Way. And if you are in South Carolina, give them a reach out. Just say, hey, I'm just checking out, see how you're doing. Encourage them, give them a high five, especially nonprofits that are small in their community. Really appreciate to know that they're actually being seen for all the effort that they are doing. So that's my shout out. Frank, it's your turn. Who would you like to give a shout out to?
I'm going to give a shout out to my first lady of my church, Sister Margie Boone. I'm a member of Crossroads Church in Fairburn, Georgia. And several years ago, she came to me with this idea of Margie's House. And it started out as a kind of food pantry, and it's now evolved into so many other services. And she has all these great partnerships. And now she's providing significant amounts of food in South Fulton for families in need. And the lines are so extended. And it started organically in one room of the church, and now they fill up the whole sanctuary, distributing food every week. And those are the kind of unsung heroes all across America. And that's the specialness of the nonprofit sector. They could be as big as we are. I think we 8 million in revenues, or they could be as small as a Margie's House with probably a much smaller budget, but a big impact. And so I want to shout out Margie's House. So please go look at Crossroads Church website in Fairburn, Georgia, and Margie's House. I want to thank Sister Boone for stepping in. There are significant food deserts around the metro Atlanta area. And unfortunately, a lot of people of color don't not only have good healthcare options, but don't have a place that they can go and get healthy foods, fruits and vegetables, and not some fast food that gives them diabetes and all other type of stuff that are just not good for our community as far as those pre-existing conditions. So shout out to Margie's House, shout out to Pastor Boone. And I just want to thank them for being a shining example in South Fulton and in the Fairburn area of what's possible when you love Christ and you serve others.
Frank, thank you for being part of this conversation today. It's been really good. You being inspirational in our conversation, and I really thank you for that.
Thank you for that, and I look forward to seeing how it comes out, and I would love to come back and update you on how we're doing in our alumni affairs work and let you know that we'll have 5 kids in the NFL, 7 working at Google.
I cannot wait for that conversation where we get to brag about these amazing kids and see how well they're doing. That would be fantastic.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you again for your time.
And for you who's working so hard at your nonprofit, serving, volunteering, and leading, I want to thank you for being a part of the Nonprofit Podcast. And as far as our team over here, we just want to give you a high five and say, keep doing an amazing job. We need you. You are part of the difference here in America. Have a great day.